Wow, that was awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being here tonight. We have Russell Jones with us, author and motivational speaker. And we are super excited right now to share with you about his ministry, what he does, and about his book that he has out, and just his dedication to the kids and to what is important to him. So, Russell, glad you're here with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? I appreciate you having me on, and greetings from beautiful Travelers Rest, South Carolina. And I haven't been here long, so I don't have the accent down yet. But that montage, and I think I put something up today, that stack of bricks. That was really my first entry into the strongman world. I was 39 years old. I was an old basketball player. Keyword there being old. I had there was no indication whatsoever that there was much strength in this body at all. And we had been visiting with some friends down the Jersey Shore, not the TV show, actually where the ocean is and everything, And we went down there and we went to a service on a Saturday night for kids. And our kids were little, and we had an old van and everything. And after the service, we loaded everybody up. One of our kids was sick, so we weren't going to stay down the shore area with our friends. And we get halfway up the Garden State Parkway, and my wife says, can't find my purse. But this was not a minivan. This was an old-fashioned big van, to haul like 3 kids around in and everything. And so we unpacked in the middle of the Garden State Parkway, and the next thing we know, she doesn't have it. We go back to the church. Church is all locked up. So we end up going to our friend's house we were going to stay with originally. Next morning, go to church, go on the second row, and there's a purse hanging where she left it. So it was a good sign that it was an honest church, right?
That's true.
And so we're on the second row, and a guy from the night before, that they had a musician playing music, and then they had these 2 strongman guys doing stuff. And I never even thought about, paid attention to strongman stuff before, but they were like bending and breaking and tearing. They're doing stuff, and I'm looking for the trick, the gimmick. I don't know what's going on, And as fate would have it, the guy that's sitting in front of me at the church was the main guy from the night before. So they had him come up and say a few words, and he thanked everybody. He had been there all week doing presentations. It was Youth Week or something, and so all of a sudden he said, we didn't know if we're going to make it on this trip from California, because we just lost my daughter this past week to she had long-term illness, leukemia, and she's like 7 years old. And my heart just, as a dad, you'd feel something anyway. But we had lost a son back in '87. This was like in 1991, and so I didn't know what to say. But the guy came back. He sat in front of me. The service continues, and I'm just sitting there going, gee, I got to encourage this guy, man. I mean, I've been through the grieving. I know what it takes and everything else, and the choices you got to make and everything. And so at the end of the service, I reach out, I put my hand on the guy's shoulder, and I said, and he turned around, looked at me, and he had these eyes like scary eyes. And he's like, and he looked at me, he goes, yeah, he says, I said, look, I don't know exactly what the Lord's got on my heart. I just want to share something with you. Maybe we can grab a bite or something like that. He goes, we got a show tonight down by Atlantic City. And I said, all right. And I was just ready to walk away. And then he goes, wait. And he calls over his helpers, and he arranges for them to take all the equipment and everything where they had to go. There was about a couple hours away. Anyway, we go to lunch and we start talking and sharing stories. And he was like the guy, that movie Roadhouse, with Patrick Swayze,
Yeah.
the bouncer, right?
Yeah.
Well, this was
great movie, man. Great movie.
This was him, right? This was his life. This is what he had done in a previous life before he got saved. And so we're telling stories. Anyway, next thing you know, he says, hey, I need some help tonight. I'm not feeling good. he said, can you come and help us break some bricks? And I'm like, you kidding me? I mean, I got a jacket and tie on and everything, and my wife's sitting there, and I said, you got the wrong guy. I said, like I said earlier, I'm just an old basketball player. I'm not strong or anything. He goes, no, we'll help you. Don't worry about it. I really need some help. So my wife, she's a very supportive woman, and she goes, go help the guy, honey. Go ahead. So next thing I know, I'm driving down the Garden State Parkway. This guy from San Diego, California, sitting next to me, and he says, how do you break these bricks and the focus? And he's talking all this stuff, and I'm driving, and I'm like, I never did this before, and we're going back and forth arguing. He's saying, watch the road, and anyway, we get to this venue, a church down there outside of Atlantic City. 2 big stacks of bricks on the stage. The one on it was for me. It was like 9 bricks, 2 inches thick. And again, no martial arts, no nothing in my background. And I said, well, can I try it? And he goes, no, we don't have enough bricks. So what would you do, Mark? So I'm like, I came all this distance, and I'm like, what am I going to do? So anyway, I go in the back, and we're going to warm up. So, I mean, warm up, right? I mean, you played sports, right? I mean, you're going to stretch out. No, warm up was sitting, one guy on either side of me, holding hands and praying. And this guy's calling down. I mean, I'm a baby Christian at that point, right?
Yeah.
And he's calling down all of King David's mighty men by name to like show up and help out, all this stuff. Anyway, I'm making it a long story. I apologize, but we get out, and they opened the show, and it was supposed to be choreographed. Me and this other guy, we're going to break the bricks at the same time. And we started this countdown. And that was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do, right?
Yeah.
That was, we talk about faith and fear, what's going to control you. And that's what I really had to deal with that right then and there. It was that moment in time. And I just prayed for total faith, and I jumped up, did what they said to do, and smashed it and everything. And I mean, nobody in the place knew it was the first time except the 2 guys that, brought me. So I'm trying to not, act like cool about it, but I was like, oh my God, it broke. I mean, it hurt, it really hurt like hell, but it broke,
Well, and I love what you're saying about, so, it's one thing like, okay, here's some bricks, and you need to have faith to break those, but they're like, well, we don't have enough bricks yet. No, your faith needs to be even greater. Like, we need more bricks. Like, that's easy stuff, right? So that's wow. So you just kind of jumped right in. And so you're telling me there's not really, like, there isn't a trick to it. It's just really like, it's faith, right? Like, so, I mean, because I'm waiting to hear, well, this is how we did it. There was a little bit, little bit of magic or secret to it or whatever, but you're saying it's just literally, it's how you, I mean, maybe you can, share a little bit, like, just don't give us all the secrets, but just tell us a little bit, like, how do you go about doing that?
So as fate would have it, there's 2 different schools of thought on strongmanism and doing feats of strength. One is, especially in the Christian world, it's almost like doing a magic show. Like, as long as you get the effect that you want from the audience, like, it doesn't have to be real. It can be an illusion. It can be, it could be something like, it could be trickery. It could be things like that. A year after that event, I decided, that I'd always wanted to do something for kids after my son passed, doing for kids in general, not just my own. And so I started picking up on some of the strongman stuff. I called some places. Back then, it wasn't like internet everywhere. You couldn't just self-teach, And I ran into a guy, Dennis Rogers, actually from Houston, Texas, pound for pound, probably the strongest man in the world during his heyday, Grandmaster Strongman. And to answer your question, Dennis, you couldn't do trickery. You had to do it legit. If you couldn't do it legit, you didn't do it.
Yeah.
So the next year, preparing to put a show together was brutal. I mean, my hands, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. But Dennis had the ability to look at you or look at me, and he could figure out uh, what would be in your wheelhouse, what you could learn to do.
Hmm.
And I've only done one thing that is no one's ever done before. The rest of my stuff is just more than the audience could handle. I've had some pretty big guys in the audience. I've done parent things and business events and stuff and all. And I always wondered if they could do it, but they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Their hands are too soft.
Well, man, that's amazing. And just want to take a second and encourage those of you that are watching. You got any questions as we're going through here? Feel free to put those in the chat. We'll pop them up on the screen here and make sure we get them answered. But man, that sounds amazing. So you did that for like, how long did you do that? Did you tour around and do that? And you said you went to a lot of schools, like the public schools, and showed the kids what you did, right?
Yeah, we did. We put together a talk. Dr. Rob Gilbert, a sports psychologist, we put a talk together, all based on scriptural stuff. But coming from New Jersey, we just figured that we would be able to reach more with a secular message based on scripture. We did youth groups in churches as well, but the main focus was on public schools. And so it was, over the years. I mean, we figured it out. We did like over 1,000 presentations.
Wow.
Somewhere along the way, we started also speaking to parents, and that was a story in itself, because I was totally not prepared for that. I mean, I knew what we had to do to overcome what we had to overcome, after my son's passing, but to put together a talk for parents, and it was, it was interesting because parents would say, do you have kids? Number one, they didn't want some fancy PhD person telling them how to raise their kids that didn't have kids.
Yeah.
But inadvertently, when I would go in to do a show that week, something would happen with one of my kids that, would just be like, okay, you're an expert, deal with this. And so, but it was a pretty good run. We were like really active probably till around 2007 or so, when the economy crashed, 2007, 2008. And so that was, when schools didn't have money, and we were using that to pay the bills. So,
well, here's what I know about, it's like before you're a parent, you think you're an expert, right? You think you're an expert on kids. And then when you're a parent, I know when I became a father, it's like, when I had friends or whatever, or had, kids previously before I did. And I thought I knew, hey, this is how you do this, and this is how you do that, and all that stuff. And then you realize, okay, all right, now I'm starting to kind of get it. And now I'm starting to understand that I don't have all the answers, right? Which isn't a bad thing. It's learning, right? It's learning. And as they go through the years, like, my son, he's 14 now. So, in the teenage years, right? And there's a whole, piece there that it's different. They're going through the changes, and they're trying to, identify with who they are and whose they are, and just all that kind of stuff from a Christian standpoint too, really knowing and putting their faith, over fear and stuff. And there's just so many things going on right now too in the world that, it's just a different dynamic. So I know you got a lot of just information and expertise on that, and partly some of that's kind of like what you do now, right? And the book and such. So go ahead and speak a little bit about that.
Well, okay, so we had a book in 1999. My wife and I came out with Top Secrets of Success for Kids. The concept was for parent and child, teenager, 10 to 15-year-old, work together every day, 5 minutes or so a day. And, there was affirmations, there was lessons. And the point of the book was things you weren't going to learn in school, number one. And number two, at an age when you're really not sitting and reading a book with your kid anymore, when they're coming of age and they're getting older, but to come up with like different stories and different messages that you'll definitely have to refer back to as they go through their teenage years. And we had that book, and it was, back of the room sales. We probably sold over 4,000 copies, but lugging books around to all the shows and everything. It was, and so when COVID hit up in Jersey, it shut down my business up there. And my son-in-law was up actually from Texas, and he said, "Hey, Dad, remember when you wrote that book back in '99?" He said, all the kids are shut down. What's going on in schools? What are they learning or not learning? He says, "You should make a video course." And I was like, "What's that?" So anyway, so that started the last 2 years where we've been expanded what we're doing. And now it's 60 days. We've got 60 daily lessons. My neighbor, it turns out, was the videographer for Congress, and he came over and we shot 50 daily lessons where all kinds of great information, all kinds of great stuff is going down, from building a dream and a vision and purpose for your life, to overcoming obstacles, to confidence, to how to become the world's greatest student, to people skills, to intelligence strength. Like in 60 days, I don't care how old your child is, how great an athlete, not an athlete, 60 days physically, they can be totally transformed. And you're there with them for it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of then that experience, it goes forward, into it, like I said, into their later years, and their physical health is impacted, their confidence is impacted. So I'm really stoked about it, but it just came out. So now it's like, okay, well, that's for the kids. But then somebody said, well, but you got to talk to the parents, because if the parents don't feel good about what you're doing, they're not going to do the course with the kids. So we came back with 10 unconditional pillars for the toughest job you'll ever have, being a mom or dad.
Oh, yeah.
And and we have that. We're giving that away to the outline for it and everything. So when people take our survey or sign up for something. So but we're excited about doing that as well. We got a Facebook group we're just starting, so we'll jump into those issues and just throw them around, see how 20 something years ago versus today, how you would approach those type things. Some things never change, so most of the things that I talk about are those principles that don't change. They're just pillars.
Yeah. So Anthony was asking, are there links to the books and course? So yes, Anthony, we can put those in the chat as well. You do have, I know you. So Russell has both a Facebook and he also has a website. So I'm going to put up the website here down at the bottom there. That's topsecretsofsuccess.com. So I'm pretty sure can they find a link to some of that stuff on that website?
Yeah, that's the page for the interactive video series, but there's links back to my page for the parents. And yeah.
Okay.
And you kept saying a book, and I've been so much into this video thing that I kept forgetting that there was a book, Sick and Tired of Being Sick and Tired: Solutions for a Better, Healthier Life, that came out just before COVID, but yeah, that's a whole thing. And in that book, I really get into the details of the tragedy. And everybody's, look, I lost a son in a car crash at 11 months old, and almost lost my wife in that accident as well. And so we had we buried him. She didn't even know yet what had happened because of the surgery she had to go through and stuff. And but what we discovered about the grieving process, and you can apply, everybody's got, if they haven't had it yet, they're going to have something that they're going to have to grieve or deal. It could just be a loss of something. It could be a horrific divorce. It could be anything, right? But there are steps to take so that you don't sink into a depression, that you can overcome and come out the other side. And so I talk about that in detail in that book. But yeah, we could talk about that a little tonight too if you want. But but again, it's all, just a guy from Jersey, just some of his experiences that, how come he can still at 69 years old, wake up every morning, with hope, every day, there's hope and there's joy first thing in the morning. So, and it's a promise, right?
Yeah.
But, there's steps you have to take. You can't just, you you can't just flop into bed at night and expect it's going to happen if all day you're not doing things that feed into that.
Yeah, you have to do things. And, I think about, there's so many different things. And I'm sure like your curriculum and stuff covers this is, you've got like healthy mind and body, and just, those kind of things are going to keep you in a better mood. Travel, adventure. I mean, all these things, having some passion, having something to do, right? So obviously from our faith, we know we have hope, because of that. But there's also just things as far as just planning and doing, and not getting set in kind of maybe the victim mentality and stuff. Again, understanding you got to go through a process, right? But, one of the things, and maybe you mentioned this too, I found a lot of times, sometimes the best thing to get out of a rut and feeling, down or depressed is go volunteer, go help out, go find a need somewhere else. And I've been blessed to be able to travel quite a bit with my jobs, and I did a mission, overseas mission travel as well, to Kenya. And boy, I mean, 2 weeks there, coming back from that, it just put a different perspective and spin on life and the freedoms and just how great we have it in America. And, even despite some of the craziness right now, we live in so much freedom, and we have so many opportunities. And, I thought going over there, I'm going to bless them. Like I'm going to bless them. They blessed me. I mean, I came back with, just a quick little story is, my plane going out of LaGuardia, like it literally, like on the way, almost when it was ready to take off from the runway, like when you're getting the cruising speed, they slammed on the brakes, and apparently maybe there was an engine failure or something like that, and so they chose to slam on the brakes. Well, we had to all get like 300 people off the plane, and so by the time we got connected with another plane and I got into Nairobi, they had lost my luggage. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get it tomorrow, right? Well, come to find out, where we were going was like, like a week away, and like we're going to be back for another week to the airport. And so they're like, no, we'll come back in a week. And I'm like, I don't got any extra clothes. This is it, So, and I remember feeling so entitled, right? I remember saying, where's my clothes? I need to get my clothes. Like, that's no way. Like, this doesn't happen in America, right? And so by the time I could come and get my clothes, a week later, I'm like, I don't really need them. I'm actually good, because I mean, I realized that, and I was working side by side by these amazing people filled with joy and love, and just great people that had so much less. And well, who was I to complain, And
Sure.
So you just a different perspective, right? And I'm sure you've had experiences like that too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's getting in front of live audiences is just amazing. I mean, after, I'm the last person you would have expected, based on my school years and everything else, that I would get in front of any kind of audience, that I would even speak. Like, I was the kid that didn't say anything in school, and but through a process, and then just getting passionate about something, but getting in front of a lot of live audience and just pouring it out there. And especially with kids, where they know a phony, they know if you're not being real. And yet, within a couple of hours of being in a school and answering some questions and signing some autographs, they're like, you have a feeling like they'd get in the bus and come home with you if you invited them. But all I did was encourage them, right? And did was I the only encouragement for them? I maybe, or I'm just like the third party encourager, that maybe they're not hearing mom and dad encouraging them, but they'll hear it from me, because he's the strongman guy or something.
Yeah.
But
you make a good point, because I think, some of these kids maybe they don't have an encourager. Some of these kids, they don't have a father, maybe to kind of impart that identity. But sometimes they can have a mom and dad, and sometimes they just need to hear it from someone else, okay, well, coach, because at some point mom and dad they're not cool anymore, right? So it's like, oh yeah, but coach is cool, or even an older, kid they look up to or something like that, that's a good influence.
Yeah.
You know, just and being okay with that, I think as parents is okay too. It's like, you know what, I don't have to be the only one. Like, I want to be involved and I want to be there and I want to teach them and guide them. But it's good for them to have other mentors too. That's not a bad thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have I didn't have a place to put it yet. I did this thing on confidence. My youngest son was he was a freshman in high school, and his two sports are wrestling and baseball.
Mm-hmm.
He was Yankees. He was born, Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera and everything. So he thought, Yankees win every year, and someday he was going to be a Yankee. But his mom had dragged him in second grade to just try wrestling, and so he was decent. He wasn't great, but he was going through this confidence thing. I mean, I'm sure it was just growing up, hormones, coming of age, but he was also in a high school setting where he had the varsity coach was just miserable. But my son was good enough to help out the team, even though he was still a freshman. So he was, just troubled. So who do I talk to? I talked to my senior pastor. We were at a mega church in New Jersey. I talked to my pastor, and total non-sports guy, And so he says, well, listen, I got this guy, brother Derek, and he might be able to help you out. He used to do a lot of that wrestling and jujitsu stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I called brother Derek, and brother Derek goes, listen, I know exactly who you got to talk to. This guy, cousin Charles. So I'm like, I'm going all down the list, right? And so cousin Charles lived in Pennsylvania. I get him on the phone, tell him the situation. I didn't even ask him to come. He was at our kitchen table the next night. Talk about abdicating. Like, I don't have to be the authority here.
Yeah.
And his experience was years and years as a wrestling coach. He was retired at that point, but his experience was the head stuff.
Yeah.
And it was confidence. And he went through, like, he came to the house twice, just these little mental drills for my son. And it changed his life at that point, in terms of confidence. And it was simple things and getting him to believe in himself, but he hear it from me. Yeah, no way. But
Yeah.
again, getting quality, mentors, those third party people, that's the challenge, because they are going to listen to other voices, but you want to make sure that you can get quality voices talking to them,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm finding, like I said, that is, like, as long as I feel like they're quality and they're going to give good, solid encouragement and guide my son in the right way, that it's okay that, like, and I think, again, as a parent, you first think, no, I'm the only one that's going to, like, they're only going to come to me for answers and stuff. And it's like, I don't remember doing that with my own parents. Always, there was other people, I'm sure, that I wanted to go to answers because I wanted to see, well, would it be similar to my parents and stuff like that. So there's a lesson for parents to learn. And I'm sure that's a lot also what your book talks about, is just how do you guide them and also, encourage them and build confidence in them and kind of let them also figure out and grow in their own identity and things that they love and passions and kind of make, their identity and from a biblical standpoint, their faith, their own, right? Like, it's got to be their own.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, just as you hear about, just there's a lot of breakdown in the family. It might be a divorce. It might be just craziness that this world is trying to cause with removing the father out and really kind of breaking down that nuclear family and stuff. So, I mean, what do you see as the biggest challenges because of that kind of influence that's going on? And I know, again, this is a fatherhood group, and I know that one of the things we have a challenge as fathers, especially when it comes into like a divorce kind of situation or whatever, it's like we get pushed out. It makes it like so difficult to like have that equal time. And so anyway, just some of your thoughts on that. I think the audience would be
As a kid, when I went through that, this is back in the 1970s, when I was going through that, uh, getting time with my son, uh, and I probably didn't even deserve it. I'm just saying for me personally, I was just a kid. I didn't know which end was up. Um, but that battle, and it inadvertently would come down to, mom against dad, and a lot of times that's even when people are living together, it's mom
Yeah.
against dad, because we don't understand the edification process. We don't understand building each other up in front of our children. But I think you can even still do that from a distance. And there was something finally that came to me where I was like, you know what? It's not helping matters that I'm pointing out all the problems with his mother,
Yeah.
because he probably, even at a young age, my son probably understood it as well. So I just decided that I'm just going to be an edifier. I'm going to build people up. I'm going to work on myself. Usually I have this countdown when we do the parent thing, and we talk about, media influence. We talk about food. We talk about exercise. We talk about reading. We talk all these different things. But the last one, so I'm going to give away the punchline right now, is what's the biggest room in the world?
I don't know, but you're going to tell us.
Biggest room in the world is the room for self-improvement.
That's
And
good.
I think instead of me looking over there and saying, she could be better at this, or she should do it this way, I started working on me more
Mm.
and more. And I think good things started to happen. And again, I can't, I can't address uh, some of the things in today's world exactly, but I think though that's a foundational thing. I think sometimes we get to a certain age, we become a father. So
Yeah.
adult is stamped on our forehead. And like you said before, well, I think I should know what I'm doing now. I'm a father,
Yeah.
but well, you don't stop there. You don't, it's a continual process. This life, it's continual learning. And to have that mindset, we talk about different ways to do that, different sources of ways to do that. It's not just knowledge that you want to gain, it's wisdom.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a big part to answer your question about relationship stuff and even moving forward from a distance. But the other side of it that I experienced was sometimes you just want to fight, right? But I guess there's a positive way to fight and a negative way to fight. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, it's a challenge.
Uh, one of the uh, one of the audience members said, "I told my kids that Dad's house was an oasis. No talking about the divorce or their mom. Their visits were always about them and what we could do together with our visits." I think that's so important. Thank you for whoever shared that. Yeah, give them a safe place, and man, that they never asked to be in the middle of it, right? If there's a
I
divorce
mean, just
situation.
look at this. Pick an age, but I mean, I'm focused on the 10 to 15-year-old age group at this point, right? I mean, my kids, I got 6 grandchildren and everything, but I mean, I was thinking about it again today. I said to my wife before, I said, can you imagine? I mean, we always, growing up in like I was born in the 50s, growing up in the 1960s, right? And that was a tumultuous time, Vietnam War, Woodstock, all the social stuff going on. And I was the oldest in my family. I mean, it was nothing compared to today. I was just a kid. I was, Boy Scouts. I was going, playing a little baseball, hanging out with friends and everything. The stuff that are facing kids today, the things they learn in school today or are forced to learn in school. I mean, I was, just trying to get passing grades and, be a good person, and figure that out. Hormones are changing and everything else. In today's world, what they're hit with, between the, on our devices, in
Mhm.
school, I mean, the messages, and I was thinking about it, and it's like that's one place where I think, moms and dads, I mean, we are the parent, and we have to be shade for our children. We have to protect them as much as we can. I mean, maybe they're going to see and hear things, but we got to be that. We have to be in that place where they're going to be willing to talk to us about it. We can talk through things, and I think that's a big part of what Top Secrets of Success for Kids is all about. Is
Yeah.
that we're doing that. We're having the conversations, and then you can point back and say, hey, remember we talked about this, and maybe thought that guy Russell was crazy, but maybe he was right, or maybe we had a better idea. But there's always something you can refer back to. So
Yeah.
it's crazy times, though. It's a tough time to be anybody, but it's really tough being a kid today.
Yeah. No, it is. And speaking of that, in fact, when we jump off here, my son's mom and I were going to have kind of a discussion over screen time for my son and stuff, specifically now that it's summer, and just be aligned. So our goal is we want to be aligned at both homes, and we want to try to reduce it as much as possible. The video games and stuff like that, just because that just is it's just such a influence, right? All those things just being in front of that nonstop. And it's challenging because you get but my friends get to do it all day long, or that kind of thing.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, well, okay, but we're going to try and do other things. So trying to
I call it the dilution principle.
Yeah.
Like I don't think can't keep your kid away from that stuff these days. I mean, I guess you could try, but but if you load them up with so many other cool things to do and get into and be around, that it's just I think a lot of times it's they don't really have in their minds, they don't have an idea of something else to do. And so
and honestly, that's a challenge sometimes to think about, as a parent, like, well, because I got all these other projects, work and things to do, and so I'm not used to like having to plan things, like especially when they're maybe even older, because it's like, okay, when they're younger, we had to always kind of plan things and have activities and stuff, but now it's like, well, now I kind of think it's kind of nice that they can kind of, do their own thing a little bit, but still, using and having that same kind of discipline of being intentional and going, okay, well, it's different planning, but what can we do? We get out of town and go out to the property, or do we do a project together? That's one thing that we're looking at, is maybe we can build a like a motorcycle or something like that, or even restore
well,
old car.
you said it before too about volunteering somewhere.
Volunteering.
I mean, there's just, I remember, when my kids were little, they went over, we had great youth pastors, and they went over to New York City and like ran a soup kitchen. Yeah, they lived there for like 2 weeks or a week and a half or something like that. And that was like tremendous experience. They didn't have to go out of the country. They just had to go across the George Washington Bridge and see what was going on in New York, So
and on that one, actually, so the school program my son's going into for his freshman year, they require a certain amount of volunteering. So like a ton of hours over the next 4 years, because he's actually going to end up being able to get not only in 4 years his high school, but also a 2-year college out of that. So they require this extensive amount of volunteering. So I'm kind of happy about that, because it's not just about, hey, we're volunteering because we want to volunteer, which we should, but now he has to. It's required, right? And I think that's going to pave the way to, this is kind of fun volunteering, because he's always liked to volunteer when he was younger and stuff. But, again, it's like, well, now I'm older, I shouldn't have to, that kind of thing. So anyway, I think all those things are just, the more that we can kind of build into the day, like you said, activities and keep them busy and all that kind of stuff. We had one of the, this is from Anthony. He said, curious, what is your last safety anchor that holds you when all other anchors fall? How would you respond to that?
Safety anchor. I usually don't have one thing. And I'm not exactly sure the question. My day, everything's divided up. I mean, I got my worship time and time in the Word, and I got, my taking care of my physical self. I got, reaching out to people I need to reach out to and encourage. I mean, that's kind of, what I do in terms of anchor. I mean, uh, I'm not exactly sure of what he means by that question, or whoever's asking the question. Anthony means by that question. I'm sorry.
I think you probably answer like, just falling back on like if everything else in your life, is just you're struggling with whatever might, combination of circumstances, combination of storms in your life, like what's the anchor that holds you, right? Um, so,
Yeah, I'm a big
family,
I'm a big holistic, cumulative guy. I'm like, I don't, everybody's got, that we had a tragedy down in Texas last week. We have all different things that go on. Everybody wants to come up with the solution, the solution. But to me, it's always a result of something cumulative. And
yeah,
so I was like, I try to take that tact in my life. I try to, address all the all the little anchors, I guess if you wants to call them that. And that usually ends up with good results. But there's still times where, you just got to cry out. I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it is life. That's part of it. And I think that's something I think as you mature, you just get more comfortable with understanding the highs and lows.
hmm,
You look around and you see, horrific things that happen, you see wonderful things that happen, and it just life just goes like that.
yeah.
And I think we all aspire to stay more on the upside all the time, but I don't think that's the reality.
It's not reality, right? And I think sometimes when you can also accept that too and be like, well, like then you're not, it's almost like setting expectations. It doesn't mean that, again, when things are good and things are going great, that like you should definitely relish in those, but setting expectations and knowing that there are going to be challenges in life and being prepared for that, so it doesn't throw you off guard. I know, again, from a faith standpoint, right? Like knowing that no matter what situation or circumstance, that the identity and the things that basically guide us come from what God says, and He always promises to watch over and take care of us, and to give us wisdom, and just all the promises that He has. And so I think having that anchor, obviously, I mean, I know it's helped me in life for sure. When something else that Anthony said is looks like he might be close to. He says, I'm in the Union, New Jersey area, by the way. so so
Yeah.
you guys should
No,
connect
I'm not
sometime.
there anymore. I'm
Oh,
not there
okay.
anymore. I'm a I'm a wannabe good old boy from South Carolina right now. I only lived in New Jersey for 67 years. So, but
only 67, right?
yeah, but yeah, there was to your point too. I think uh, yeah, I think the expectations have to be optimistic
Hmm.
in life. I think we go for that, we shoot for that. But I think we the more we take on in terms of what we think we can control, I think the more we're going to be humbled. So what is that thing we've been talking about in Judges this the past few weeks is they did what they thought was right in their own eyes.
Yeah, yeah,
And you know what? I did that for years, and it all sounded good, and I thought it made tremendous sense in my little brain. But if it doesn't make sense in God's eyes, then I'm pretty much spinning my wheels.
right. And the sooner we can get to that point of just being, like I said, being okay with that, accepting it, and understanding that, right?
Yeah,
Because again, it's a useless pursuit, right? Unless it's something that aligns with the God's purpose and what He has for us, and that's part of the journey, right?
yeah.
So, well, what other things, as we're kind of getting close here, what other things do you want to share with our audience, as far as
Well, I think maybe, and I had to learn this one. So okay, so we got married in 1980. On the day after our wedding, on our way to our honeymoon, I announced to my wife that I believed I was unemployable. Right. So I was certified to teach social studies, and I was driving tractor trailers at the time. Right. So she said, "Well, you tell me now." So I said, "Well, it just dawned on me." So we had a couple of dollars saved up. I said, "Well, we could get a small house, or we could get in business." So she said, "Well, let's get a small house." I said, "Nah, let's just go for it." So no business experience, no business background, no business experience in our family. And the only thing I really thought I had experience being around a lot was bars. So we bought a bar, and it ended up being a restaurant. Anyway, we're there, and it was it was interesting because we decided that we were going to go with country music because at that point John Travolta was ruling New York with Urban Cowboy.
Yeah.
And borrowed my wife from her nursing career, and she came up with this unbelievable restaurant, food that we were serving and everything. And then so we get into it, and we're like, okay, this is great. We're doing live entertainment so many nights a week. It was, I mean, it just hurt. It was painful. And these two young people sitting at the end of the bar, they would come every couple of weeks and eat guacamole. And they invited me to a meeting to learn about business. And so I said, okay. And we go to this meeting. I don't know if you're familiar with the Amway Corporation. Probably the older people here would know about it. So it was basically selling soap, but then they expanded into a million other products. But it was one of these multi-level network marketing businesses, right? So I don't know anything about what's going on, right? So I'm listening, and I go down to Virginia on a seminar. My wife is back in Jersey running the bar. And I said, I'm taking notes. And on Sunday, it was late Saturday night. And my friend said to me, says, look, tomorrow there's going to be a non-denominational Christian service. And I'd had a really bad experience with church people back in my junior year of high school. And so I said, look, I don't go to church. This 10 years now, other than weddings and funerals, I don't go to church. And plus I own a bar. So Sunday mornings you sleep. And so anyway, the Holy Ghost wakes me up at 9 a.m. I could not go back to sleep. I go down to the service, and I came forward. I said, I tried everything else. And I just gave it up for the Lord that night. And that morning rather, I called my wife on a payphone. Old people, you know what a payphone is. Hey. And so, and I said, you'll never believe what happened. I went to this service, and these Baptists from down south, they're talking about Jesus and in a way I never heard about it before. And she said, well, we tried everything else. We might as well try Jesus. And that's just been part of this whole journey. And I think coming full circle with everything that's going on in this world today, we got to get everybody back to that. Yeah. And they used to ask me this question all the time in this group. They say, what book are you reading? And I had no idea what they were talking about. So I said, well, I'm reading The Power of Positive Thinking. I'm reading the Bible. I'm reading this. But every time I get around these guys, every week or so, they'd say, what book are you reading? And basically what they were saying was, I realized it took me a while. They had to explain it to me. The stuff that was coming out of my mouth, the negative stuff, it didn't matter what I was reading. It wasn't affecting the stuff that was coming out of my mouth. The way I was expressing myself, I wasn't building people up. I wasn't even building myself up with the way I spoke. So I think if we all learn how to, control our mouths, our tongues, we talk about being hung by the tongue, snared by the words of our mouth. I think, we'll build up our kids, build up our spouses, we'll build up everybody around us and stuff, So I think what book you reading was like the most important thing for me during that time.
Well, that's good. And again, you're just thinking like, why you keep asking me what book I'm reading? I just told you it's the same one. I haven't finished the book yet. Come on, it's only been a week or whatever, right? But what they were saying, I like that. It's like what book is is currently affecting your life. What are you learning, and how is that changing you? And so it's almost kind of like, and we don't really have enough time to go deep into it, but from an identity standpoint is who are you listening to, right? Who are you listening to? Are you listening to, again, from our faith standpoint, listening to what God tells you about who you are, or are you listening to all the other influences in society and all the craziness and maybe, the peer pressure and, for our kids. So, I mean, so important for our kids, right? Is like, especially during these periods, is like, and again, it's that balance of, well, no, I want to, because I've learned it, and I've grown and I've matured. Like, I want you to know, like, who you should listen to, like, and I want to tell you, and just listen to this, and and we need to guide and we need to direct them. They also got to make it their own. Like, they have to realize that on their own. I think that's the hard part, and it's kind of what it's what God does for us too. Is like, He's like, okay, like, I'm giving you all the information and I'm giving you all the guidance, but I can't force you. That's your decision. And what He really wants is that relationship, and for us to really know who we are and stuff. So I like that. What book are you reading? Like, who are you listening to? What are you taking in, and how's that coming out? And man, if we could just function like that, every day, right?
We tell the kids all the time, the greatest computer ever made is, behind your eyeballs, in between your ears. But the most powerful programmer for that computer is your mouth, is your words. I can tell you all kinds of great things about you, Mark. I can say all the wonderful stuff you're doing with your life and everything else. But if you're not telling yourself that, I mean, you're just shooting yourself down. And I think when we have those thoughts, those down thoughts, those moments, I think Anthony before was talking about that last anchor. We can't give up on what we're saying, the words that we're using, because the word, the word is everything.
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. But it's just been a powerful thing for me. We do a whole thing in the series on positive affirmations every day. The kids not only affirm what they learned in the 5 minutes that we're together, but then they have a special notebook that comes with the course, and they write that down, and they keep that before they go to sleep at night. They program it. They say it to themselves out loud. So that's the last thing that goes into their conscious mind, and their subconscious works on it throughout the night. So it's powerful. It's a very, very powerful concept.
Yeah. This is good too. The biggest influence to kids is your actions. They see what you do when they are around you. Read with them, pray with them, and show them God's ways. Really powerful. Definitely important to remember and to be intentional about. Right? It's just, we get so busy, and again, it's learning as parents, right? It's learning, like, and what are we focusing on? Are we focusing on the things that aren't really going to matter? Because we only have our kids for so long, right? I mean, I mean, 18 years, and then they're on their own, and they should be on their own, right? I mean, that's good for them to be on their own, and hopefully, they'll come back for guidance every once in a while.
Right. But yeah, it's the whole parent thing, and then grandparent thing. It's just an interesting thing where sometimes we get into this mindset where you think everything's going to be like this forever.
Yeah.
But everything is changing, and you might not see it day to day, but everything is totally changing. So, grabbing those moments, but not freaking out when those are not great moments, just knowing that it's going to change. They're going to grow.
Yeah.
They're going to hear it. They're going to get it. If they don't get it from you, they're going to get it from somebody else, and hopefully it's a good thing that they're going to receive. But
and
again,
that's kind of a trust factor, right? Like, for us with God too, I guess, because we're just supposed to kind of sow the seed and give the guidance, and And you may have thought, like, I think that's also part of expectations. Like, you got this whole thing planned. You're like, oh man, we're really gonna get into this great conversation, and like you almost think it too much. And what I've learned, like for my son, a father to a son, is we have the better conversations when we're doing something like side by side, like working in the yard, or we're doing a project, or out in the lake, or whatever, and doing that, and the conversations come up, and you just kind of get into them more naturally. We don't really sit across the table and let's prepare this conversation, but even sometimes you can be like, man, I got this thing I want to talk to him about, and I'm all ready for it, and they're not in the mood, and it kind of goes south, and you're like, oh man, that was epic fail, right? But it wasn't an epic fail because you were involved, and you were intentional, and you made the effort, and there's another time to bring it up, maybe if it didn't work then, and maybe they'll come back around later that evening and, hey, what was it you wanted to talk about, and stuff like that. So I think it's just staying plugged in, right?
My 3 younger kids will tell the stories about dad and his letters, because life got so busy, between, like you said, with work and running around and activities and other obligations, everything, church and everything else. If I couldn't get with them, but there was something that was really, I had to talk to them about, but the right time wasn't there, I'd write a letter. I enjoy writing anyway, and I'd write a letter. So they would, they'd say, "Hey, did you get a letter from Dad?" And it was like, it was they were rolling their eyes, but they always got the message though too, So and it's in black and white, so they can't,
That's right. That's right. That's right. But, well, hey, Russell, it's been great. I know you had something, I think, did you want to leave us with, like something?
Oh, yeah. Just real quick, guys and ladies. So I've been working this for 30 years, a way to bring kids and their parents closer together. The vision has always been a world where young people and their parents, mentors, caregivers are equipped to make informed decisions that keep their lives moving in a positive direction. So it would be fantastic if you went to the website that's been up there, Top Secrets of Success Top Secrets of Success, and Russell Jones Speaks, and you can go to the Parents tab. Also, I'd love to have you join the Top Secrets of Success for Kids Facebook page and the Top Secrets of Success for Kids for Parents page as well. We just started that. All these issues will be, introducing on deeper levels as we go along. There's a survey on those pages. If you could take the survey, that would be awesome. So I'll get a feel of, that we're hitting on all the right cylinders. You can connect with us on Instagram, and I just started TikToking, and the Top Secrets of Success interactive video series is totally transformational. I said it earlier, 60 days, 5 minutes a day with your teenager. I mean, the stuff we go through is just amazing. And the change that you'll see, positive change, is amazing. And I just want you to introduce you to somebody. Hey, Blaze. Hey. Come. Over here. If you, any of our social media stuff, you'll notice there's a, come here. There's a recurring character. Up, please, up. I got it. Up. Hey. Oh no! Come on. Hey.
He's not going to perform.
She thinks he has a cookie. I mean, he thinks she has a cookie. Hey, Blaze, come. Right here. Oh, you shouldn't use that. Here, up. Blaze, come. Look up.
There we go. Oh, there's Blaze.
Everybody, you perish. This is my boy. You'll see him. We do amazing things together, and he's there to encourage the kids every day. Blaze is a part of the program, so he's either swimming or carrying rocks or doing all kinds of crazy stuff, running with the horses and everything else every day. So I really appreciate you guys, and I'm hoping I can just be a great source of encouragement for you.
Well, thank you, Russell. And we'll put all those links and stuff that you mentioned in the chat. But thanks everyone for joining us, and a big thank you to you, Russell, for just sharing with us all your knowledge, all your expertise, and everything that you're putting together. So it's definitely needed in today's world right now, and so I'm just encouraged that you're doing it and that it's available out there for all of us. So thanks again, and really appreciate the time today.
All right, man. Be blessed.
All right, you too, man. Bye.
Bye for now.